Hey there, today I am doing the third tier list video in the series where we cover all of the different threat categories and do the whole tier list thing with them, I guess. And today I am joined by one of my co-hosts from the Gamer Guild podcast, Josh, or Merzane as you might know him on Discord and other places, to talk about where we are landing on these 39, kind of 40 if you count the Sentinels as two characters, but 40, 39-ish different characters. But before I get to our rankings, there are two things I want to address. And if you have already heard these two things, you are welcome to skip ahead. First is how we are using the S to D scaling. S tier characters are characters that are too good, characters that likely need to be toned down in some way or another for the overall health of the game. A tier characters are ones that are strong enough to be easily splashed or always see play in their affiliated homes, but don't really need to see any balance changes necessarily. B tier are solid characters that will see affiliated play or can see some splash play where there are synergies with particular leadership abilities, but really characters in this range are in a great spot and don't need any changes, in my opinion at least. C tier is for the characters who have reasonable play in one spot or another because of a very specific role or job that they fill. Characters here probably just need one minor tweak to be brought up into the ranks of an A or B. Minor in the sense of Iron Man's Repulsor Blast only costing 2 instead of 3. Then D tier is for the characters that don't see the table that often and are most often seen maybe in narrative-styled games or maybe even just a meme list. And these are the characters that need like a Hulk-sized rework of their card, in my opinion. Now, that said, the gap from A to D isn't a crazy gap, and a character we list as a D can still absolutely come into a game and do as much work, if not more, than an A tier. But I wouldn't mind seeing the characters put into the D tier get a couple of tune-ups to have an argument to see the table more often, because they would hopefully have more consistent use and explosiveness on the table. The second thing I want to address is that, yes, I know that tier lists are not everyone's favorite form of content. They don't require much time on my end of things for setup or editing, and they are just full of opinions that you by no means have to agree with. I mean, they're lazy, they show no creativity, but hear me out. These are a great reason to bring in other great community members to get their thoughts on different characters' values in the game. They're also just kind of fun to make and talk about all the different characters that have come out over these past 3 years. And they are also easy to produce when also editing podcasts and other videos that come out weekly. And while divisive, they are also pretty consistently some of the most popular content in the gaming world as a whole. So if this isn't for you, I 100% understand. Leave a comment down below about what kind of content you are looking for, and I can either point you towards some of my other videos or podcasts that fit the niche, or someone else in the community who covers what you were looking for, because we have an awesome community of content creators here. But please be respectful, because even if it isn't for you, at least recognize that there are at least a couple thousand of other people who do enjoy these. So with that said, my name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. Alright, and as I have already said, I have Josh with me today to do this pretty quick. Compared to the 50 some odd characters that we had last time, there's only 30 some odd characters this time, so shouldn't be too hard to go through a lot of these, and I think we'll be on a similar page for several at least.
Should be.
Alright. So just starting out with the core box stuff, we've got core Captain America. Where would you rank him amongst all these characters at this point?
I think given our tier list specifications, I would put him in B tier, very solid. I don't think you're going to splash him a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but I think he's super solid in the Avengers specifically. And while I don't think like there's anything I would change about him, I think it's just that he doesn't really provide things that other affiliations are really looking for.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think he's a very solid B on just his kit alone. As a leader, he definitely takes a step up into like the A tier of leaders at 4th Threat and stuff. But since we're really just trying to focus in on like how good is this character and what they're bringing whenever they hit the table, his kit really screams a pretty solid B to me. Uh, Now here's another core box character that did get a tune up, but I think maybe still needs a. I don't know. Maybe she's a B. Captain Marvel. What do you think?
I think she's a B. I think she's underplayed. I think she's
Mm-hmm.
really good. Um, I feel like she might get a little bit more play with like Corvus, or not Corvus, sorry, Malekith running around. She seems to have like a little bit of cool play into him,
Mm-hmm.
being able to throw him and stagger him, and good defenses against his energy attacks. Um, but I don't think you see her a lot outside of her affiliations, which are Avengers and A Force. I think she's really solid in both. Um, and I can see arguments to splash her, but not a lot of arguments to splash her.
Yeah, I personally am a fan of her in Brotherhood, mostly because they're still not great on the energy attacks and stuff like that. But I also will be honest, I haven't put her in a Brotherhood roster since Rogue came out because she checked a lot of those boxes.
Well, Rogue is kind of Captain Marvel, right? She's got all the
Yeah,
powers.
got to
It-
kind of absorb them and stuff.
she's kind of fighting with characters like Crimson Dynamo and Vision. I feel they all feel
Mm-hmm.
very similar, and I feel like Captain Marvel just has a few more defensive and like a few more defense abilities with like the binary form and the blanking things on her energy attacks. Or
Mm-hmm.
when people attack her with energy, that is. So she's just not as flexible. She's very techy.
Yeah. Next up, we have Corebox, specifically Red Skull. And this one I think is C. I think he could use a little bit of the same love that most of the Corebox characters got.
Um, I don't know. I feel like he's okay. When I used to play him, I never felt like I needed anything from him. I felt like he always did his job.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of a weird. He's kind of like Dormammu to me. He's more like a support piece with some ranged attacks,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that's not super well valued in this game. I don't think it would break him
I,
to see. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was just, like, all I want is his that second attack to not cost any power.
I think that's actually I was going to suggest. I don't think he needs a whole lot, but if anything, I would just want the
Yeah, so
cosmic
just
ones
like
to not
the
cost.
the tiniest of tune-ups, make him gain power on it with sap power, make him gain power on it through his leadership. But like I don't think that needs to cost one for what it's doing.
I think in the current landscape of the game, certainly. I think way back when, I think it costing a power was fair.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, there's better attacks that are free.
Yeah. Next up, we have Korbox Spider-Man.
I may get some blowback on this, but he's a B.
Okay. I was thinking low B, high C personally. Why B?
He's another one I think is super undervalued.
Mm-hmm.
I typically don't leave home in a Web Warriors list without him. He's super good in Web Warriors. Not good in Defenders, his other affiliation. And I really don't think he fits in a lot of other places. He's not a good splash character at all. But he does a lot of he's like a mixed bag of all the things Web Warriors want to do. He's got a direct form of control. He's got a decent throw. He's hard to kill. He's got an energy attack, which is actually really good for the Web Warriors. They don't have a lot of access to that.
Nope.
It's a good energy attack. I think the issue is when he was first released, people didn't like him because he wasn't affiliated and he's not a splash character, and Web Warriors took forever to come out. And by the time Web Warriors came out, people were just so down on him, and it's sort of a meme like, oh, Core Spider-Man's bad, Core Peter's not a good model, yada, yada, yada. But I think that he's actually surprisingly versatile.
I even think he was a better model back then because his control was unprecedented.
Yes.
He's got push on attacks. He's got a pull on any size. He's got a range 3 throw on another enemy character that's size 2. Just so much control. The only reason I was thinking like high tier C, because like for the most part, I think he does play just fine. And really, I think like an extra stamina point is all I would have wanted. Like just make him 6'5" or 5'6" or something.
I don't think it would break him to have a sort of like Red Skull. I don't think it would
Mhm.
break him to have a buff, but I certainly think that he is very, very affiliated playable as he stands.
Yeah.
I think that even at the beginning of the game, people didn't value control when he came out. By the time people valued control, people felt like he got outmoded by people like Venom and other members of the Web Warriors
Well, it
and
was
people like
also that
Valkyrie.
unfortunate time where it was like Enchantress and MODOK had the infinite bow, which
Yep,
was just better control.
and Valkyrie was a splashable 3-point character with a throw she could use every turn. So like you didn't need him at the time because there were kind of broken quote quote characters at the time that were doing these things a little better
Mhm.
than him. But now I think he still has a great amount of control for a 4 cost. And I think people are sort of sleeping on him, to be honest.
Yeah. Next up, we have Robot AI Ultron, the last of our core box characters, and yet another one that got a tune-up. I think he's, I think he's C.
I think he'd see.
I really like what he got some good tune-ups, and they were effective tune-ups. Like these are all good things that make him a better robot. But he's still just like, even the times when he's on the board, he has a lot of power. He's not making a big impact, I feel like.
Yeah, I think it made him I think those changes brought him from D to C.
Hmm.
I think he's like a specific tech piece. You're not going to see him everywhere. And I think that's a fine place for him to be.
Yeah, I agree with that. Being able to hand out Incinerate, really nice. 6-die attack on the builder now, also really nice on a 4-threat character, as we'll see on some other ones that we talk about. Has a terrain throw that got bumped to size 4. You know what,
Age of
man?
Ultron.
Yeah, Age of Ultron, I'd kind of write off personally. But I don't know. Yeah, high C for me probably.
I agree.
And then we have probably our first A tier. I could no, probably just A tier. Black Panther.
Yeah, I think he's definitely an A tier. He's got a little bit of everything except support. He's just control, offense, and defense, all that rolled into one package.
It's like, hey, do you want a speedy character? How about 2 long moves and a short throw himself? You
Yep.
want offensive capability? Well, look at this. I get to full rerolls on my attacks, and I can throw myself. You want
Mm-hmm.
defensive ability? I count blanks on energy and physical attacks, or I increase those stats by 2. Like, Black Panther's good.
Yep.
Not to mention, also, control. And his spender, I think, has any size control as well, which is just kind of sneakily in there.
Oh yeah, and I think it also it's weird control, but it's good. It's also like extremely offensive if you can get Mantle the Black Panther to work too, because you can get
Oh, gosh.
like an 8 or 9 die reroll at attack.
Yeah,
Very good.
I've used that. I've nuked some people with that. And next up is his distant relative, Killmonger. Where do you think he fits now?
See, I don't like Killmonger.
Yeah, you've never liked Killmonger though, so I'm hard pressed between the B and the C. The reason I'm going to put him in C, the reason I am putting him in C though, and the reason you are putting him in C are probably different. Killmonger makes me play a mini game of how many kill counters can I get to make him get all these like rerolls and stuff. And like you don't need to play that mini game. You just need him to go and like just try to kill stuff anyway. You're not trying to leave somebody set up on 1 HP or something so that Killmonger gets an easy kill later. And I have caught myself in that trap a couple times.
I don't like that many game because I feel like his gameplay loop is made for a longer game where he wants to bully lower tier characters until he can fight the high tier characters. But he doesn't really have time to do that. I also don't like one note characters very much. And he is a super one note character. He kill. or he gets no value. And it's just kind of boring to me. And I don't think it fits with what the Wakandan affiliation's idea of like being a control and efficiency faction.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can be splashed in very specific places, like in some criminal syndicate stuff, which he's not really a splash, but it feels like one.
Yep.
But I don't think he's very, very great on his own. I think he needs a lot of help.
Yeah, he needs help. He needs things, but like once he gets going, and again, I'll say this, and I've said it every other time. At the end of the day, all of these characters are playable. The difference between like D to A tier isn't really that far. Killmonger can get on the table and absolutely clear the board state solo if the dice line up and stuff. Like, don't get us wrong, C tier is not like you can't play this person effectively or anything like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't raise an eyebrow at any single character in the game getting play, and all these characters are included.
I've got one that I would raise my eyebrow at, but we'll talk about
I would
that.
raise half of my eyebrow at one of the ones on this specific list. Actually, two of them on this specific list.
Okay. Well, next up is one that I would raise my eyebrows if anybody but Kenny refused to play this character, and that's Venom. And I think he's A tier.
I think he's A tier. I think he isn't splashable in every single affiliation, but he's real good in a lot of them. And he's a very good tech piece on top of that.
He's a fantastic tech piece. Like, unless you have a energy character that is able to attack at range 4 or 5, Venom is just a problem that you won't have an easy time dealing with. Because you can't leave him on the board, gaining power and pulling people out of position medium. Not to mention a size 3 throw. He has a bodyguard effect with lethal protector. Honestly, if they gave him a medium move, he would be S tier probably.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I think he was the first example of why medium-based characters like get weird movement things sometimes.
Yep, they need it sometimes.
He need to be slow.
And next up is a character who moves medium on a medium-sized base, but is probably not even B tier, and that's going to be Hela for me. I think she's in the C, and I'm curious to see if you make an argument for D tier for her.
I think D tier. I think kind of like Killmonger, her game plan doesn't really fit like as short of a game as the game is. And she doesn't really do anything. Like,
you know what? I'm going to make a counter argument here for you.
Okay.
I think grunts have made her more viable.
That's possible, but I think that there's better options for 4 even with grunts in the game.
Oh yeah, there are definitely better options, but I think her tune-up doesn't need to be like where Hulk got a like massive rework on his card to make him functional again. I think it's just going to be one of those things where like she just needs a small tweak somewhere, and suddenly she becomes an absolute menace.
Give her charge, and I think she's really good. To be completely honest, I think you just give her charge, and she's fine.
That would be really good as an example. That's a little bit more than like a 1 power change, but it's not quite Hulk. So we'll say low C for Miss Hela.
As the only person to have splashed her in our podcast, I'm sure I'll accept this.
Next up is her pack mate, and that's Loki, who I'm going to throw in at B tier at his 4 threat self.
I agree. I think he is fine at 4 points, but his true potential is unlocked when you give him a mind gem.
Yep. 100%. He's like 4 threat him is still super annoying, still super durable. As long as you have some power to back him up, it can be super offensive as long as you have some power to back him up. So there's still definitely some places, but giving him some guaranteed control on most characters, it's not quite as true because now there's Sentinels and Deadpool and other stuff. Juggernaut. But Loki as a whole is a really annoying piece for your opponent to have to deal with, especially if they make the mistake of dazing him without a good game plan to kill him. He can just become super frustrating.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing, I think the mind gem gives people a reason to hit him, which is what you want. Mm-hmm. And without the mind gem, people don't really have a reason to go after him. They're just like, oh, he's mildly annoying, I'll just ignore him now.
Yeah, like I mean, he'll smack.
Oh, he
Uh,
can.
he can. Man, counting blanks. There's a reason that only 3 characters can do it on offense.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not quite to him, but we'll have another one soon. Next up, though, is Vision, who I feel like is A tier.
I would think he's probably one of the best A tiers in the game.
Ooh.
Very, very good beam attack. Sap, gains power, good typing, hard to kill, hard to remove. Has a really good throw at 2 cost and size 3.
Yep.
And medium. Like, just, there's not a bad rule on his card. And I don't think he's wanting for anything.
Yeah. No, I think that sums him up pretty well.
Yeah, he's just a very, very well contained package. I think anything added to his card completely breaks him.
Yeah, he definitely needs nothing added. Range 4 beam is amazing. Sap power on that, even better. He has a great spender. Yeah, no, like the only thing that you could want more on him is dice consistency, but if you give him that with everything he already has, it just breaks him.
Yeah, I agree.
Next up is the other character that at 4 threat can count blanks in their attack roll, and that is Corvus Glaive, who I think as a 4 threat version of himself is B tier.
That's a tough one. I honestly think he's probably C tier.
Ooh.
I don't think Affiliated really wants him. He really needs the gem, which takes him to 5 threat, to really make good use of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, like, oh, well, with the Corvus leadership, he's fine. But then, like, it's with the Corvus leadership, and there's no reason you're not taking him with the gem. Like, I think
there are a couple characters that are just kind of like Loki. You can justify without the gem. Corvus is just like, do it, take the restricted slot. Like it's worth it. Do it.
Just go ahead and staple your reality gem to your Corvus card because you're gonna do it every time.
Yep. Next up is one I feel pretty strongly about at the B tier, and that's going to be Gamora.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think she's fine. I don't think she's amazing. I think you can get really solid work out of her, and I think she works best in affiliation because I don't think she's worth it as the splash.
Yep. Basically, if you're going to splash a character that does a lot of what she does, you're probably going to take Panther instead. He's a little bit more durable and has the control aspects, while Gamora is more killy than him with the ability to get off multiple attacks on her spender, dice consistency that you don't have to spin for. The two are very similar, and I think Panther's durability control just pushes him a tier above.
Yeah, I agree. I think she went from, again, like a D to a B tier. So she had a really significant tier jump when she got buffed.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, then, we have Black Dwarf.
I'm going to say B.
Yeah.
And you may disagree with me.
No, I fully agree.
Okay, good. Because I think he's pretty good. And I think he's really good in affiliation, particularly the Corvus affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's also I think he's decently splashable, not enough to make him A.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff like Criminal Syndicate and maybe like X-Men because he's got a fat base.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking maybe Sentinels to get a little bit more power, stuff like that. I don't know.
Could be interesting if you just want all your big base boys.
Oh, yeah, obviously. That's how you play Sentinels.
But yeah, all in all, really nice. He's got the bodyguard. He wants to be upfront and personal anyway. And he's got the too dangerous to ignore kind of bodyguard. Damage reduction on top of that, along with a 6-die builder. And like, yes to all of that.
Yes. All my yes.
Next up, we have Ronan, who I think is a sneaky B without his power gem.
I think a C tier.
Why?
I think that he's only really playable in Humans, where he's an affiliation piece with the power gem when he can do shenanigans. Otherwise, he's just too expensive in their already expensive roster. And he just doesn't follow the Guardians game plan. They really want low to the ground, very efficient characters, and he is really not that.
Hmm.
Um, but I think he makes a really good tech piece at 4 sometimes in just random lists. I think there's going to be times where the meta will shift and he'll be cool. But I don't think where we're currently sitting is now, and it's not going to be often.
Man, the way I see him is just he's a 4 threat version of Thor that doesn't have charge. And it's basically what Ronan is.
I kind of see him as like a very slow point sitter almost that wants to control a quadrant of the board and just be like, you don't want to come in here because I'm here. And I think the game's too fast for him right now to do that.
Okay.
He needs his abilities turned on by the power gem, I think, to make that work really well. Unlike Loki, who can make it work without it, I think he's just a little too slow without the extra power.
That's fair, because the only way he can build power is his range 2 strike. His universal push doesn't. Like, maybe if his universal push was a gainer
Mm-hmm.
or a
I can
range
see
4 or
that.
5 dice attack, has some nice other effects on it, but just make that a like long range gainer. I think that would be all the change from C to push him to A or B, probably.
I can see that, honestly. Just some way to get a little bit extra power and get turned on quicker.
Yep. Next up, we have Will's favorite sculpt in the game, unless that's changed, but I doubt it, and that's Green Goblin.
Easy B. Easy B.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Very good leader, very cool synergies in his affiliation, maybe a little bit in Criminal Syndicate. I see no reason to splash him.
Maybe Hydra. He's got a lot of conditions he can throw out on the pumpkin bombs a little bit more consistently now, but the
Maybe Hydra.
inability to control stuff is or like objective stuff is concerning, but yeah, as a whole, solid B.
Maybe Brotherhood to blow up buildings, but I think a lot of it is more cute than good with better options elsewhere.
Yeah. And then next up, we have one that was a definite S tier breaking the game, who has, I think, fallen a decent bit down to B, and that's going to be Enchantress.
I agree. I think Enchantress is better than a lot of people give her credit for. I think a lot of people think she feels useless, which is strange because I think she's still got amazing tools, but definitely not the monster she once was. I no longer check under my bed for Enchantress when I go to sleep.
Yeah. Her action being a steal feels right because she just is able to get all the power in the world anyways. I wish when they had toned her down so significantly, they gave her another way to spend her power, though. Because now she's just kind of sitting on it, except for maybe a size 2 terrain throw. But otherwise, really solid character, has control, can hit multiple characters in multiple different ways, variety of attack types. Yeah, overall, pretty solid B.
Yeah, I agree. I think she sits on too much power and her spender's not good enough. The rest of her kit's fine, but I wouldn't take her outside of affiliation.
Yeah. Then we have Kingpin.
Again, very easy B. I don't think you splash him, but he's one of the. I think he is an S tier leader on a B tier body.
Yeah, and his leadership works really well with his own kit, similar to what Steve has, which is really cool to see. Which is like, and that's like when you design a leader really well, to be that in tune with their leadership, it's just like, yes, checks off all the boxes. But yeah, otherwise, I think if you're attempting to splash him, he's really slow. You don't want your 4 threat to be a point sitter if they're not also protecting themselves for their leadership ability.
Yeah, I think he's a character that needs absolutely no changes, and he is perfectly designed the way he is. Although I would love for his leadership to get deleted because it's annoying to play against. I think it's still fine. It's balanced and it's fantastic.
Yep. And you know what? I think D is for Daredevil.
D is for Daredevil. I think there are 2 characters on this list I will tell you just fundamentally don't work as designed, and Daredevil is the first. I don't think he does anything. I think he's very fun and very cool, and like all characters, he has potential to do cool things, particularly with his spender, like pushing a bunch of people off of an objective. I had a lot of fun in Web Warriors doing all webbed up into his spender to get a whole bunch of dice on people and have a good time. But in your game to game loop, he just doesn't do enough. And I think he has too many things going on. He wants to sit at range and bring people to him with his baton hook. He wants to sit in melee and punch people a bunch with his powers and respond when they punch him. And then he also wants to push people away with his spender. And it's like, he doesn't have a cohesive thing he wants to do. It's just all these different conflicting messages. And the only way for him to gain power is to run up and hit someone.
Yeah, I think he needs a decent bit of love. We now have the Shadowlands version of Daredevil, and that one gets like a 6-7 split on stamina instead of 5-6. He's got 4 physical defense, and then that swaps out with 4 mystic on his injured side. But he's just like, he's more durable. His attacks seem more useful. So with all that in mind, I think Daredevil needs a pretty hefty makeover on what his durability looks like. And then additionally, maybe give him a web swing kind of thing, not necessarily the extra dice on the next attack, but something to make it so that a move into Devil's Deliverance isn't like all he can do in a turn, or maybe like tone down Devil's Deliverance cost for 5 is massive.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Give baton hook a little bit of power gain too, I think. Like make it a gainer.
Just a 1 power, make it a gainer.
Yep.
Plenty of ways to go about it. But I do think Daredevil is one of the characters that needs a little bit more love than, I don't know. Pagani says that he's like the secret love and like super perfect and underrated. I just can't see it. I've tried it. I've really looked for it. I love him in like Separation Anxiety, where Devil's Deliverance is like absolutely lovely. But outside of that, it's rough justifying getting him to the table.
Yeah, it's Daredevil's Deliverance is really good on like Gamma Shelter to close a game out, but then you have to get to the point where you can close a game out with Daredevil on your team, and that can be very difficult if you're playing against a person using better characters.
Yep. Next up, we have what is probably about the perfect balance changed character, and that is Medusa, who dropped from S tier to where I think she sits firmly well placed in A tier.
A tier, definitely. I still think she's almost too good, though. I think she is sneakily good.
I think people are sleeping on her a little bit.
I think people took her and Valkyrie and Enchantress and saw the nerfs and threw them away. And I think Medusa came out relatively unscathed, particularly compared to the others. And if I think once people quit reading Hydra Tactics on Bucky and then read the Siblings in Arms on the new Nick Fury and then read Medusa again, they're going to go, oh, wait a minute. Oh.
Yeah, Medusa's real good. I think she's solid A. I think they toned her down appropriately. Push is now on a wild and has to be resolved before you can resolve the flurry. The flurry is a little bit harder to hit on her basic strike. But otherwise, like, she didn't really need any changes, and so they didn't change anything else on her.
I think the interesting thing about the push becoming a wild trigger, it's like a buff nerf. So it's more like a side grade, because sometimes it's easier to get a wild than it is to damage versus certain characters you might want to push. But conversely, like sometimes it was easier to get the wild or to do the damage than it was to get the wild versus others. So like it sort of shifted who she really like hits more often with the push, which is interesting. And then the flurry was the real direct nerf, I think, and that was really good.
Yeah, that needed to happen.
Yes.
I wish it was wild hit instead of wild crit, but that's me just wanting her to be really good.
No. I wouldn't be upset if it was another wild.
Next up, Sabretooth, I think pretty firmly C tier.
Yeah, I think C tier. I think that may change when we see the Weapon X affiliation coming up. Uh,
Maybe.
but maybe. Of course, there's another Sabretooth in that box that might be better suited for the affiliation. But
Yeah.
I think he's cool. I've seen him really well used. And I've also seen him really poorly used. And I think he's very much a your mileage may vary character.
Hmm.
And I think one of his biggest issues is being too similar to Black Panther.
Yep. Another Panther problem kind of thing. I will say the combination of aggressive with untamed force is just really nicely made. Being able
Yes.
to be like, hey, if like you attack me, I get to move closer to you and take a swipe.
Against
That's
the
really nice.
uninitiated, it's very surprising.
Yeah. I wouldn't have minded seeing his physical defense be a 4 instead of a 3, but otherwise, pretty nice stuff. Maybe just, or maybe even just give him like a reroll on attacks only, not even on defense.
Yeah,
Would be
I would
cool
like that
too.
actually.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
X-23 has a reroll.
yeah, on attack and defense.
Yeah.
I really wish AMG would give more. Like Okoye has her reroll only on defense. I wish we had more characters that were like, hey, you only get your reroll on attacks or only on defense, to give just like slight little buffs to different characters. But in his pack is Wolverine, and I think Wolverine is D tier.
I can see that. I would say a high D or low C. I think he
Mhm.
needs all he needs is his charge thingy to be 2 cost rather than 3, and he's fine.
Man, but even then, like with everything that he is wanting to do, I don't know like if you made that 2, I'm not sure. I would still pretty much every time say yes. I would rather have X-23 than Wolverine. Kind of a
I
situation.
I think that's more of an X-23 problem than a Wolverine problem, though.
You're not entirely wrong. Immunity stun feels like a little bit of a weird choice, but
Should have immunity bleed.
yeah, well, he bleeds plenty. But I I feel like there's some significant changes, not just the best at what I do coming down. He would be a character that would benefit from some reroll tech. The backside is super flavorful. He goes into his like berserk mode and stuff. But also then he's like not able to do objective stuff, and that feels really bad at the 4th thread, is kind of demonstrated by Green Goblin. But I think Green Goblin can still at least secure things. He just can't pick up. Is that
I
right?
think that's right. And he's also like significantly more offensive on the backside, whereas Logan just gets the detriment, is easier to kill, and like gets more dice the more he takes damage. But people are just like, well, I'm just gonna ignore him until I can kill him.
Yeah, get in the situation where you can just really lay it on him. I will say, for what it's worth, Wolverine can also contest. He just cannot pick up objectives at that point.
Okay. Which
Uh,
I think he could use some love on his backside and get the charge taken into 2, and he probably feels a lot better.
yeah, I think he needs some changes. Next up is his bitter rival in the X-Men, Cyclops, who I think is a C. Like, I know his leadership isn't well loved, but I think just his overall kit is at the point where it could be a C.
I'm torn between high C and low B.
Low
I think
B.
he I think he is fine in affiliation, especially because like they don't have like great access to energy all across the board. He's pretty good energy attacks. I think Field Leader is surprisingly good. And I think to me, my X-Men is a severely underrated card. I think his one issue is getting power. And if he had a more reasonable way to get power, I could see him being a solid B. Which I think that's
Don't.
a problem with a lot of the X-Men, though.
Yeah, I think he's a. I don't think he's quite B, but just one of those like, hey, give him and Hawkeye an innate power called Marksman, and it gives them one reroll on targets that are outside of range 3 or
We're outside
something.
of range 2. So
Or outside of range 2. Yeah.
I think that matches up with his quick draw ability, which would make
Mhm.
him which would give him a lot. I think Hawkeye could be 3 because it's also on his quick draw thing that he's got. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah,
Where he can
quick draw.
shoot them, and then whatever Cyclops is, where he basically gets martial prowess, but at over range 2, like the
Mhm.
reverse martial prowess. I think you could, just like how a lot of things have the same name but different specifics. I think you could do that, and that lets them play at the ranges they want to play at really well, and
Yeah.
reward you for it.
Tiny change would make the world of difference in the same way that like Iron Man now sees a significant bit more play than he once did. Next up, we have Mr. Sinister, who I think, as long as you avoid the trap of his tactic cards, is a B.
As someone who has only played him with the trap of his tactics cards, I would say a C.
And I think that holds true. I think if you devote those additional resources, because like some characters, you staple those tactic cards to them. You staple Deception to Mystique, uh, and you don't feel bad about it because it kind of is what propels her into the A. If you spend those additional resources on Sinister, I think he does drop down into C tier.
I think my issue with Sinister is sort of like Red Skull, where his Cosmic Blast shouldn't cost a power.
Mm-hmm.
His beam either shouldn't cost a power or should have sat power on it.
Okay.
Because he's just so power hungry. Every time I've ever played him, it's like his builder is good, but it's kind of like Groot's builder. Like it's good, but it's not great. So he wants to get beat up and get power, but he also wants to spend all his power to get tokens so he doesn't take damage, so he doesn't get more power. And then he's also not getting power to use his bow or his cool spenders. And it's just this weird feedback loop of like, what is he doing? And then if you do the cloning route, he just doesn't have the resources to do much else. So you're not getting a lot of his other cool stuff, but you're getting more power. It's just weird. I think he needs one of the characters that just needs a little bit more power to be really good.
We've got Blade next, who I think is B tier. Like he's got nice Pierce on a builder. He's got rerolls on his spender as long as you can make him bleed. The dude's got healing. He's got defensive rerolls against stuff that's not energy. Overall, I think he's a solid B.
I think he's a good B. I think he's a great leader. I think he's pretty decent in Avengers, believe it or not.
Mhm.
I still think you want to take him outside of affiliation.
Yep. And then there is Carnage, and I'm kind of interested to see where you put him.
I would say C. I think he's a decent tech piece for certain metas, like the Sam meta. But he's a big risk, big gamble, because he could be very easy to kill.
He can go down pretty easily. You got to activate him in the right spot. I personally like him at B, but I'll put him high C, low B, because I think he absolutely, into the right team. Like you put him into Brotherhood, and you, as long as you keep him away from Rogue, like Carnage is just a menace. And it's also just so demoralizing to see him go from like, oh, I've only got to do 2 more damage to him, and it's like, oh, I dazed somebody. Let me heal back to full and then make another attack.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most frustrating parts about him.
We then have Omega Red, your favorite character in the game.
I would say a C tier.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's cool. I've been playing him a lot in Convocation. A lot, quote, quote. He seems pretty good. I just think you need the right pilot and you need the right place for him with the right mentality.
Yeah, I've been playing him some with Hydra because there's some fun synergies there. I'm not sure he's going to be the ultimate choice there, though, even with his fun synergies. Because he's so similar to Venom, but also very different at the same time, which is kind of unexpected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too.
You know what? I'm gonna clump all of these next 4 threats together because they're all the grunt ones. Nick Fury.
A. I think he's an A tier.
Ooh, really? I was gonna say
Good,
B.
Good output. The grunts are fantastic, and I think he's got some good tactics cards to go with him. And he is going to be. I think he's a higher skill floor, higher skill ceiling character, along with his affiliation.
That's fair. The grunts definitely are a little bit harder. I think he himself, because like the grunts help him. I think he's B, but I understand it. Uh, Elektra, I think is C tier
I think she's D. She is right there with Daredevil for me. I think she's broken at a design point.
in the bad way.
Yep.
I don't think she's quite that low, mostly because it's one of those things where like if you just changed it so that her primary attack was even just a gainer, let alone a builder, like that's all she needs. It's just that little bit more power generation, and like it would probably only bump her into B tier, but it would be enough to firmly make her a more playable character. She sees play in Convocation as it is because of the grunt shenanigans and stuff, and she's got the mystic attack. But yeah, I say C for
Yeah.
now.
I agree, 100%.
And then the last one is Shadowlands Daredevil.
A
And
again.
yeah. Now, would you say A if he didn't have his leadership?
Well, A is splashable, right?
Yeah.
I think his leadership is fantastic. I think he's still a very splashable character without his leadership.
Okay.
I think
I
he's
don't
got
think
some
you're
really
wrong.
interesting shenanigans.
Yeah, I don't think
Like
you're
in
wrong with that.
Convocation.
Convocation, mostly for the grunt stuff there, and the fact that the grunts can kill themselves and Ironbound Books doesn't care is the fun interaction with these two as well as the upcoming Red Skull. Yeah, no, I'm on a very similar page. Daredevil's got some great tools, great durability, has movement on an attack that's guaranteed, which is fantastic. He's got a little bit of everything that you would probably want out of a character like him.
Yep.
So now at this point, I'm just going to try to. Have we covered the 2Ds that you were going to put
Yes.
in the. Okay.
It was Elektra and Daredevil.
Elektra and Daredevil.
D is for Daredevil and all of his friends.
And all of his friends. In that case, C must be for Colossus, right?
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think Colossus isn't unplayable. I think he's cool. I think he's got use. He needs a little bit of love, though.
Needs a little bit of love. And honestly, he is so comparable to just being the bodyguard version to what Black Dwarf is with his Too Dangerous to Ignore. But I think the only change Colossus needs is for his throw to be able to throw size 3 characters as well as terrain.
I can agree with that. I think they were a little scared of terrain or character throws on superpowers right now, and some characters just need it.
Yeah. And what the characters that move slow and have problem building power anyway are the characters that need that.
Yep. He needs to be a bully.
Yep. We then have Rogue, who I think is A tier.
A tier. God, she's so good. She's almost S for me. But she's a very solid A at the least.
Yeah. Is able to choose attack type on her strike. Has a thing that can either just deplete your opponent's power or just cause them straight damage if they don't have enough power. Not to mention terrain throw, character throw on her spender, charge, damage reduction.
Yep.
Make me stop talking because she just has all of those things.
Invert what I said about Colossus needing a character throw, and that's what keeps Rogue from being broken, is not having a character throw on her superpower. If she had a character throw, she'd be broken.
Even if it was just like make her terrain throw size 3 and make it a character and terrain, it would be
still broken. She'd be insane.
Next one is one that I admittedly have not played with, so I'm not sure where she necessarily belongs. I think it's B tier, and I'm talking about Ancient One.
I think B. I think you can see her in random places, but I think she's mostly an affiliated character and sort of a techie affiliated character. Low B, high C for me for that.
That's fair. I think she sees play both in Defenders and Convocation pretty regularly. She's got a really cool kit. I just haven't put her on the table enough to know how well that holds up. The next Convocation character, though, I have put on the table a lot as an Avenger, and I think he's the only 4-threat S tier that we currently have, and that's Voodoo.
I agree. I think Voodoo is a little too good. I don't know exactly what dial I dial back to make him feel fair without making him feel boring, but he needs something. He is insane. There's
Uh,
nothing he can't do.
yeah. I think they're the two changes because I like going in a little bit of depth of like, this is a character that's broken. Here's how I would try to like break them down a little bit. And it's all about the Brother Daniel token, probably surprising no one. I think the ability to possess somebody needs to be once per turn. And I
I
think
agree.
once Brother Daniel gets dazed, or I guess Brother Voodoo gets dazed, Brother Daniel needs to come back to him.
I also think Brother Daniel needs to be shakeable.
Ooh, I don't know about that.
I think it's fair to turn Brother Daniel into a stagger if your opponent wants to. That means they have like an option to gamble to try to kill him, but if they fail with him, they're stuck. Or pay power,
Maybe.
or pay the same amount of power. I think having a more proactive way to remove it besides death, because he wants to run away a lot. That's part of the problem, right? He's gonna book it towards a corner sometimes, and you're just not gonna kill him. Having a way for your character to remove it from themselves, I feel like would be very good.
Hmm. I have not played Brother Daniel like that, or Brother Voodoo / Daniel like that, so I can't attest too much to that. But I could definitely see how that could be super frustrating.
I've never played him like a coward.
Next up is World War II Captain America.
I honestly don't know. I have not played him at all. I look at him and think he looks like a bee. He seems cool in Shield, but I just don't know.
I look at him and think probably a good C. Like he's okay. He's an affiliation 4 threat for Shield that needs another affiliation 4 threat, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Like there's not that a lot that I love on him. There's no consistency things. Like he's got some mobility with his running as long as he isn't holding an objective. But then of course that means that Steve's not holding an objective, and that feels
Mm-hmm.
bad. So I don't know. Maybe high C, low B. We're not judging this one fairly because neither of us have put him on the table or seen him on the table.
Yeah. And Matthew confuses me because he keeps talking about how he likes him and he doesn't like him, and he likes him and he doesn't like him, and I don't know.
All right. The next three we have, I think, are all three that are at different tiers, and these are the last three. So I'm just going to read out their names, and I want you to place them where you want them.
Uh-huh.
Black Swan, Crimson Dynamo, and Ursa Major.
Black Swan, C, because she's got no gem. Crimson Dynamo, A. I think he's right up there with Vision, but just a slightly different flavor of Vision.
Mm-hmm.
And Ursa Boy,
Major.
the Ursa Major. I can't remember if it's Ursa. I'm thinking the constellation.
It is like that's the thing. He's named after the constellation.
Yeah, I'm thinking Ursa Minor in my head. I'm like, which one? I think he is a C tier. I think he'll be kind of cool in affiliation sometimes, but not the coolest. He will see play because he's a bear.
So I've got Dynamo at A because if you haven't put him on the table yourself yet, to anybody who has him, do yourself a favor and put him on the table. He is just so frustrating for your opponent to deal with. In addition to just having a beam that shocks people under it, which is already annoying, being able to be like, oh, you're going to kill me by like 2 successes. Let me reroll one of my own dice and make you reroll 2 of your own dice and see how that turns out. And the good news is for the Crimson Dynamo player, it usually turns out in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, being able to also place within range 2 to line up a beam and still have actions left over, fantastic.
It's what Vision wants.
Yep.
He dreams of that.
Black Swan, I feel like, is a B, personally. Probably on the lower end of B without the Power Gem, because Power Gem just really turns her on and lets her do whatever she wants from turn 1. But even without it, is still pretty solid as just a 4-threat beater to me. Not really splashable anymore, but doesn't necessarily need any love either.
I'm sort of in the opinion that she really needs to be turned on from the beginning because she's going to get scalpeled out if you don't get early work with her.
All depends on whether or not your opponent rolls wilds.
Truth. But then she won't have the power to change your wild, so it won't matter.
Yeah, she'll put it up quickly enough. And then Ursa, first of all, is really fun to play because I've got to play him a couple times, and you're playing with a bear, and it's a lot of fun. But he needs just a little bit of extra support on him, even if it's just like damage reduction. I think he suddenly becomes easy beer A tier. But as of is right now, I think he is C tier.
I wish B was for bear.
I wish B was for bear, and hopefully one day it can be. Maybe all really like I think more people just need to get him on the table more often, and him getting a bigger affiliation would help with that. Because right now, like, nobody's really playing Winter Guard super seriously because there's only 4 affiliated members. Like,
yep. And he's sort of a very bland looking character card with very few flashy powers. So he's at the first one you're going to reach for. You're going to look at him and be like, there's cooler characters, but he's a bear. So maybe.
Yeah. Do yourself a favor. Try Crimson Dynamo. Try Ursa Major. Have fun, even if it's not in the Winter Guard affiliation. But that is all
Sentinels?
of the characters. Oh my goodness. They don't have them up on the website yet, so I wasn't able to grab pictures. Yeah, we need to talk about Sentinels.
Sentinel.
You can have 2 of them.
Yeah. I'm going to let you tell me what tier you put Sentinel Mark 4 in first.
I haven't played either against or with them yet. I haven't done any of some of the preemptive testing that I have done before. But I feel like they're going to be solid B tier.
I'm gonna take your B tier, right? And I'm gonna raise you. I'm gonna raise you. I think I could see Sentinels being splashed. I think they could be an A. Now I may be insane.
I don't think they're that insane. I think a lot of the reason we'll see them splashed, and we will see them splashed at first, is because of like the fact that you're putting Sentinels on the board, not necessarily the like game mechanic reasons that we have put everybody else in A tier. But you may not be wrong. I'm really interested to see how their power efficiency ends up working out between spending power into their builder to get more power back, getting power at the end of their turns. There's a lot of interesting stuff about them that I really feel like, in addition to like, hey, I haven't played with this character, it's hey, I haven't played with this character, and they have a whole lot of things that are just different about them that make them play differently and all that kind of stuff. So maybe A tier, but for me, probably B.
I think they will be a solid B, maybe C, but probably B until Malekith gets fixed. And once he can't throw them, I think they are a lot more valuable because he's one of the few things that can displace them, and he's everywhere.
Yeah, he's one of the few things that can displace them that is everywhere. Like Rogue can still do it. You can still have Hulk do it on a spender. Like there are things that will still be able to toss them around a little bit. It just won't be nearly as heavily in the meta.
Yep.
For sure. All right, and with that and the imaginary picture of Sentinels that you were either displaying yourself or I have managed to go in and edit a Sentinel to be thrown in there somewhere. This is our rankings and the reasons why we put them there. Thank you all for watching. Next week I will have Will from House Party Protocol to go over all of the 5 threats with me, and we'll just continue on with the series from there. So thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.